Okay, can you all hear me? Okay, or do I need to use the mic? Fine? Okay. If I start getting too low and you guys can't hear me clearly, let me know and I'll pick up the microphone and continue. So, first of all, good morning. Thank you to the university for inviting me here to give this keynote and for showing up on a Saturday morning when the sun actually is out and it's actually above freezing. So, I'm going to talk, my keynote today, I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of a quick run through on the history of cloud computing and where OpenStack, which is a cloud software platform that was created 4 years ago, and where does it play today? So, first a little bit about who I am. So my name is Kenneth Boyd, or you can call me Ken, and I actually work at a company called Rackspace. And I'll talk a little bit about where Rackspace fits in with OpenStack. But I currently work there as a technology evangelist. And if you want to know what that is, I'm talking about later, because it's way too long to explain right now. But I've essentially worked at a lot of different companies, both on the vendor side and also on the user side, that have been involved in IT since client-server, Unix, Solaris days, up to now when cloud computing is actually growing at a rapid rate. So quickly about Rackspace. How many of you have heard of Rackspace before? Okay. Well, half the people, a little less. So we're actually based in San Antonio, Texas, where Matt lives. I live in New York City, so I just go down once a month just to get some really good barbecue. The Rackspace itself, it's a 16-year-old company. We've got almost I think to update now, about 6,000 people, and about $1.5 billion in revenue. So what we do is we basically do managed services around technology. So companies, over 200,000 will come to us if they want either cloud computing or they have servers or storage that they don't want to manage themselves and want us to do it for them. So we do that at 9 different data centers all over the world. And Matt and I are actually going to be here this afternoon conducting a couple of mock interviews and also sitting out in the OpenStack booth. So if you're interested in talking about OpenStack, but also interested in Rackspace, particularly if you want to work, interested possibly in working at Rackspace someday, come talk to us. We're always hiring people, and it's a fun place to work. All right, so let's talk a little bit about legacy IT. So you guys are allowing, most of you, how many of you are students here? Okay, most of you. So you haven't had, fortunately, you probably haven't had to deal too much with kind of legacy IT, unless University of Albany supports legacy IT. But the idea of legacy IT, when I say legacy IT, I basically mean an old way of doing things, where let's say you're a developer, right, and you want to write an application. What do you do in order to have an environment that you can work with? You probably call someone, you open a ticket, maybe online, to some administrator here in the data center, and then they tell you need to you need to write down all the reasons why you need this server or this networking or this storage, and then you get 5 people to basically approve the request, and then 9 months later you have something you can work with. So that was typical IT. Lots of waiting, right? And the problem with all this waiting was, if you think about it, in today's era, when Apple, let's say Apple announces a new iPad, right? What would happen if you were developing an application for that iPad, and it took you 9 months from the time it was announced to actually getting something, you could actually start testing, and then 3 months later to get something out. By that time, your competitors have blown you by, right? So the question is, how do I get something I can develop on quickly so I can get an application or software out in time to support a market? Because if you don't, you're doomed to failure, right? Because again, your competitors will always pass you by. So that was the way IT ran, really pretty much for 30, 40, 50 years. Until about 2006. How many of you buy things from Amazon? Probably almost everyone, right? So Amazon, so this is an interesting story. Amazon is basically, if you think about it, it's basically a logistics company. that sells and moves product at a very rapid rate. But they do it not through retail stores, right, but by online. And one of the things that Amazon got really good at was pushing out new technology all the time. Things like shopping carts, or one-click shopping, or being able to recommend to you, right, what to buy based on your past choices. All those are the things that retail stores couldn't do, but Amazon was able to do. And in order to support that level of innovation, right, they couldn't afford to wait 9 months to get a server running. Right, they had to get it done in minutes. And so they actually decided to build a new infrastructure, right, with servers and open storage, where they could actually accelerate the time it takes to roll out new applications. And they were so successful at it, and they heard so much from their customers about how bad their IT was, they said, you know what, I think we have a market. So in 2006, they created AWS, right? And AWS, Amazon Web Services became something called cloud computing. So how many of you have heard of cloud computing? Okay, good. So the idea of cloud computing, which really was something that Amazon pioneered, was this idea that instead of a company, let's say University of Albany, housing and managing their own servers and IT equipment, Amazon would do it for you. And even more importantly, Amazon would give you a web portal, right? So instead of you having to call or open a ticket and waiting 9 months to get a server, you basically swipe your credit card, fill out some information about what you need, and you had a server in 10 minutes or less. And all of a sudden, you can develop faster and faster, right? How many of you have heard the term fail fast? Some of you have. So fail fast is something that's become popular as a slogan for the internet age. The idea is the idea is that there's a good chance that when you develop something, the first time around, it's probably not right, and it's something that has to be fixed. The question is it valuable for you to wait to have to spend a year doing that, and then figure out you did it wrong and have to start over? Or would it be better if you could get something up and running, find out you failed 2 weeks in, and then start over again. Right, so the idea is, let's use cloud computing, which is what Amazon Web Services is, to move as quickly as possible. And you think about the equation. I'll give you an example. So let's say a typical company, I'll give them a benefit of that. Let's say you use University of Albany as an example. Let's say they actually use legacy IT, but they're pretty good at it. And so you can actually spin up 10 projects in a year. But as in any typical company, most of those projects will fail. So let's say you spin up 10 projects, 7 of them will fail, 3 of them will succeed. What you're banking on is that those 3 projects that succeed will bring in enough value and revenue to cover the cost, or to exceed and bring your profit to cover the loss that you had on the other 7 projects. Right? The problem was you could only do 10 projects. You have to bank on that at least 3 of them would succeed. But what if you could use cloud computing, and now instead of 10 projects a year, because you can spin up servers so quickly, and develop them so fast and create so many new applications, now you can spin up 30 projects a year, right? And now 9 of them succeed, right? But because cloud computing means you don't have to hold the resources yourself, it's the same cost as if you had managed your own servers, which you did when you had 10 projects. So now all of a sudden University of Albany can try 30 projects, succeed 9 of them for the same amount of time and at the same amount of cost that they did when they could only spin up 10 projects. Right? I think almost any company in the world would buy off on that and say that is the way to go. And that's where startups today are at, right? Where they can quickly spin up resources, they fail it fast, try something new. So this is creating a lot of innovation in the market today, which is why cloud computing is taking off. Interestingly enough, right, I said before, startups are the ones who wanted to go to Amazon. Because, if you're a startup and you go to a venture capitalist and they say, they're willing to give you X amount of money, you have more value. You can say to them, you know what, the money you're going to give me, I'm going to spend to hire developers. I'm not going to spend the money buying a bunch of equipment. because I'm just going to rent it from Amazon. Right? But interesting enough, when Amazon started talking to enterprise customers, right, like banks and insurance companies, and in some cases in universities, they found out that a lot of those companies weren't interested in what they call the public cloud, which is what Amazon Web Services. For a number of reasons, including things like having control. Because one of the reasons why Amazon can give you such low prices, right, when you used to rent the IT services, is there's something called multi-tenancy, which is this idea: if I have a server, I'm going to put 10 people on it, 10 different companies, right? And because I'm sharing the cost of that across 10 different customers, I can charge very low prices. The problem is if you're a hospital, let's say, right? Or let's say you're a credit card company, and you have people's personal systems data on it. You don't necessarily want that being shared on a server with another company. In a lot of cases, you want to allow it. So a lot of these companies say, you know what, I really can't store my stuff over in AWS or in the Rackspace public cloud. But my developers really like the idea that it doesn't take them 9 weeks to get a server. It only takes 15 minutes. So they basically said, what if we could build our own cloud, right? And it's called a private cloud, where I can actually have users through self-service on-demand resources to let them get the same benefits that they had if they went out to AWS, but without all the risk involved in storing data somewhere else outside their own walls. So that kind of became Genesis maybe 5 years ago, what we call the cloud world, where people like AWS, that the only cloud that matters is the public cloud. And then these other vendors came out and said, no, we're going to create a private cloud version of AWS. And a number of vendors, including OpenStack, started that process. So OpenStack itself actually came out of NASA and Rackspace. So Rackspace, as I mentioned before, kind of started in its history as a managed hosting company. And when they saw what AWS was doing, we realized, hey, we can offer the same type of services to our customers or potential customers. So we started our own public cloud. But we also realized, you know what, there's a market for people who want our private cloud as well. And so we got together with NASA, and we decided we would create something called OpenStack, which would give service providers, if they want to start a public cloud software, do that. Or if a private company wanted to build their own cloud, they could do that as well. OpenStack is as sort of an alternative to AWS. Now all of a sudden, all the stuff we talked about, the on-demand self-service, where you can spin up machines and destroy them within 15 minutes, was something that not only AWS customers could do, but anybody who used OpenStack. And one of the interesting things we did with the OpenStack software was we decided that unlike AWS, we weren't going to make it proprietary. So we actually open sourced it. So what we did was we got together with NASA and a couple other companies, and we created something called OpenStack Foundation, which is somewhat equivalent to the Apache Linux Foundation or the Apache Foundation. So what that means is we basically took the source code, right? What we used to actually build OpenStack. We released it to the public and said anyone can download it and use it for free. And you can even modify it, and we would like you to port those changes back. You don't have to. You can actually take the code, modify it to anything you want of it, and not have to pay any money or send the changes back. And in order to kind of make that possible, we formed this committee, this board that would oversee to make sure that OpenStack is properly being licensed or properly being promoted and used and that innovation would be driven along at a very quick pace. That's probably hard to see. That is hard to see. Yeah. Basically, what this chart is showing is that OpenStack is now officially the fastest growing open source project in history, faster than even Linux. When I gave this talk a year ago at a different location, we had 200 companies involved. We are now at 338 companies, spanning 135 countries that either are using or contributing to OpenStack. And we are at 2,000 developers today. And this is possible because of the fact that we allow anyone. But this a cool thing about developing OpenStack is a complete meritocracy, which means you could be a large vendor like IBM, or you could be a developer, a university opening the dorm room. You've got a great patch, great piece of code you want to submit. It will get approved. If it gets approved, it will report it into the trunk. So anyone, literally anyone, can help make OpenStack a better piece of software. And because OpenStack is growing so fast, and because the need for cloud computing is so great, we've got a lot of partners, a lot of people who jumped in who are just either using OpenStack in some way or contributing to it. In fact, one of the coolest projects, a couple of cool projects we're working on at Rackspace is we're working with CERN Research Center. They have a super collider, and they're actually building an OpenStack cloud, basically create infrastructure to compute all the data that they get. So on a daily basis, they are importing, calculating, and disposing terabytes of data every single day. And they use OpenStack for that because to crunch those levels of data, they have to spin up thousands of machines in a matter of minutes. And that's something, again, they couldn't do with legacy IT. With OpenStack, they're able to spin up those machines and then tear them all down. The other project that's really cool is we're working with Notre Dame to create an OpenStack infrastructure across different universities using Internet 2. So again, OpenStack is used in many different areas. Because it's growing so fast, there's a great opportunity for university students, as well as people who are working today, who want to get involved in cloud computing. So currently, OpenStack job postings are increasing at a rate of 80% a year. And there are actually over 1,000 openings that are unfilled today. Just on people who can either develop OpenStack code, or operate an OpenStack cloud. The reality is a lot of the companies you see out there today, the folks that work there know how to operate in a legacy environment. They don't know how to operate in the cloud. And that's where the opportunities are. So a couple of ways to get involved there. Obviously, user group meetings and workshops. Another way to get involved is twice a year, the OpenStack Foundation sponsors a design summit, where all the vendors show up. We should get we'll probably get 5,000 to 6,000 people in May in the lab. You can come and talk to people and sit in workshops that teach you about OpenStack. And particularly if you're a university student or faculty, there are special arrangements you can make to get you free access to the summit. So I can talk with Matt and I after later on today at the OpenStack table. So the key takeaway for this, for all of us here, is that we are entering a new era of innovation. And it's innovation that's happening 100 times faster than it did even back in the dot-com in 2000. And a lot of that's enabled by cloud computing platforms like AWS, but also like OpenStack. So my encouragement to you, all of you particularly who are students looking to get in the job market, is take a look at cloud computing, because that is where the next great era of technological growth, and we want to make sure that you guys are all involved. Thank you for your time. Okay, we have a couple of minutes, so there's 1 or 2 questions. Happy to try to answer them. Okay, so again, Matt and I will be at the OpenStack table right outside here most of the day, so feel free to come by and say hello, pick up a sticker, and ask any questions you can. Thank you for your time.